All right, well, I'm thankful for how that last panel ended because it made this transition into esports for our next panel much easier. Ooh, everyone grab their seats? So our next panel is going to be around esports. We're not going to go over what esports are. We're going to talk about the opportunities, some of the potential risks, and we just let into it. I love seeing the Fusion shirt. Philly's new team here, so way to support. Well done. The one thing I want to mention is there's never been a better opportunity. We have high school students here, college students, recent grads, people that want to make a career change. There's never been a better time to work in sport, to be part of it. I went to grad school for sport management. I was very fortunate and lucky to work for the Flyers and the Sixers and Comcast Spectacor way back. But at the time, it was really the four major teams. And what about being a broadcaster on ESPN? It's not like the landscape today, the idea that you can have a job in esports. I was watching ESPN the other day. They were doing cornhole. Well, someone has to broadcast that. Someone's doing the media for it. So it's an incredibly exciting time. We're going to get into the esports panel. Special thanks to Bear Crossing McDemas for sponsoring and representing. They're a business transaction firm focused on the future of tech. I'm going to call up our two moderators. Everyone knows one you just heard of, so if I can get Ryan back on stage, that would be great. Ryan Howard. And the moderator for this panel, along with Ryan, and he's also going to stay on and moderate the third panel. Wayne Kimmel is the managing partner and founder of 76 Capital. He started everything in 1999 as a 29-year-old. To present day, done over 50 investments, had a lot of successes. Wayne's incredibly just passionate about working with the entrepreneurs, helping people. He wrote a book recently. He's an author now. All around, everyone should think like an entrepreneur, how critical it is to network, and really the importance of giving back and always helping others. Without further ado, Wayne Kimmel.
All right, we're ready? That's it. All right. Thank you.
All right, so we got our esports experts coming up, the two Robs. The first one, as I mentioned, he's a partner at Bear Crossing McDemas. He left Comcast Spectacor to come over there, focusing all around the legal, what's changing in esports, and what the future is going to look like. Rob Art.
All right.
And our last panelist, one of the founders, one of the co-founders of our portfolio company, Nerd Street Gamers, located right here in Philadelphia, NSG. If he's a little tired looking, if his eyes are still, he just came off of a long Overwatch tournament. So works crazy hours, he's in it, he's a gamer, and they're going to talk to you about building the future of esports. Rob Hilsky.
Welcome, welcome. Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, what a great panel before. Ken, you did a heck of a job. And again, just so proud and so excited to be partnering with the Global Sport Institute from Arizona State University and putting on this event today all around sports tech and sports betting. And this next panel is really one of the things that's really close to Ryan's and my heart, and a lot of the things that we do at 76 Capital. I mean, we're talking about the next thing. When you talk to our other partner, John Powell, and we talk about what we want to invest in, we want to invest in these entrepreneurs who are doing the next thing in sports tech. Well, esports is the next thing. And quite frankly, and what I'm hoping to do with this panel is not only just talk about esports from a technical perspective, but actually, like, what is it? Because I think there are a lot of people across this world, probably not in this theater this morning, but a lot of people across the world really don't know what esports is. And luckily, we have two experts with us this morning that will talk about and share with you their experiences in this brand new world. So first, I want to get started with Rob.
Which one?
Exactly. They wanted to start in the audience. So I want to start with Rob Orrit. Now, Rob is a partner at Bear Crossing, and it's a law firm that they do a lot of different things, but one of the specialties that Rob does is on the esports side. So Rob, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in this esports world.
Sure, Wayne. Is this thing on? Yes, it is. So I like to say I've been practicing at the intersection of entertainment, technology, and sports for the past 20 years. When I went to law school, I started law school in 1994, so I was applying in 1993. The internet hadn't really happened yet, but I had a friend who was a grad student at Drexel University who kind of introduced me to the internet, which at that time was, there was no graphical World Wide Web. And I took a look at this thing one night and was like, oh my God, I need to be a part of this. And I went to law school at that time to try and figure out how I could be involved in this, what I sort of instantly recognized was going to be a game-changing technology.
Came
out.
Where'd you go to law school?
I went to Brooklyn Law School in New York.
We were in law school around the same time. I'm a little bit older,
right,
teeny bit.
Yeah, I graduated in '97 from law school.
So we're like old for esports.
We're old for esports, that is for sure. And for we'll talk about it maybe a little bit later. But my 14-year-old son is about the right age for esports, and being a fan at any rate, and a player. So when I came out of law school, the internet had commercialized. I had to learn a little bit of Unix to get around the internet. You don't have to do that anymore, as soon as the World Wide Web went graphical. And I've been really lucky to work doing what I want to do in the law for this whole time. I worked in a small firm in New York. It was an entrepreneurial firm, not unlike the firm I'm in now, working with the burgeoning Silicon Alley internet startup scene in the early days of the dot-com explosion. I worked in-house in the music business, steering its transition to a digital business when it was kind of under withering attack from the free peer-to-peer music services and transitioning into the legal, sort of Spotify-centric music business you see today. And sort of most importantly, in terms of why I'm here today, when I moved back to Philadelphia after a couple years at a big law firm, I was lucky enough to get to work at Comcast, particularly Comcast Sports, where I became the lead digital media lawyer for the Comcast Sports regional sports networks and what was then their 24-hour sports channel called Versus. And so that was an amazing experience for 5 years, or say 3 years with Comcast, and then Comcast bought NBC. And I got to do that same job at an even higher level for NBC Sports, where I was the lead digital media lawyer for NBC Sports, which was incredible. I was like living the dream, right? But then my dream job drifted away, moved to Connecticut, and having spent 12 years in New York, I decided my family is from Philly. We wanted to be here. Philly is, doing incredible things, and we wanted to be a part of Philadelphia. So decided to stay here, but I got to stay within the Comcast family. I got picked up, in particular the Comcast Sports family. I got picked up by Phil Weinberg, the general counsel at Comcast Spectacor, which is the company within Comcast that owns the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Wells Fargo Center, where the Flyers and Sixers play, and a number of other businesses. And I spent a number of years, 5 years almost, there in Spectacor, doing all the technology-related things that one does now in pro sports, but also most recently, starting really last summer, getting involved in the esports world when Spectacor became the place where Comcast decided, because of its experience with pro sports, would be the best place to house the esports franchise that it purchased the rights to in the Overwatch League, the Philadelphia Fusion. And I was, really in the right place at the right time. And as that sort of grew, I decided it was a real opportunity for me at that point to go outside and sort of grow my involvement in esports by going back into private practice, but staying the lawyer for Comcast Spectacor and the Fusion. And incidentally, there's actually a second team already at Comcast
FU?
Spectacor. The FU.
Wait,
That's
you're
right.
not supposed to say that?
I'm sorry. It's Fusion University, which is their sort of minor league or contenders league team. It's also a professional team, but it's not in the Overwatch League, which is like the real
we'll
pro
get
league.
into all those things. Ryan,
Yeah.
why don't you,
Rob, can you explain to us kind of what Nerd Street is and what you do at Nerd Street?
So we just play video games.
So that's why we at 76 Capital invested in Rob and his team, because they play video games. No, seriously.
So we've been running video game tournaments for about 8 years now. We never really thought much of it. It was just a hobby of ours. We had our day jobs, and on the weekends, we had this awesome space in Northern Liberties, and we'd push all our desks aside and just throw small video game events. And the popularity started to grow. Our first Counter-Strike event, it was just mostly local teams. And our second Counter-Strike event, Canadian teams started showing up. And then by our 9th and 10th, we had European teams flying in. And that's kind of where we started to see it. The amateur scene in esports is really underrepresented. And that's kind of where we focused all of our strategies. Our tagline is actually the premier, North America's premier amateur esports pipeline. And that's just everything we do boiled down into one sentence. We from the very basics of pickup games at our venue to higher end tournaments with a lights, stage, and camera like we're sitting here now. So
Kind of getting into it a little bit more. Can you kind of explain or discuss the differences between the pro level, college level, and the amateur level of esports?
yeah. So the first thing to really pop in esports was the pro level. All of these major corporations and big companies started pouring all their money into the professional level, and it's almost oversaturated right now. And even the colleges are like just starting to catch up with the pro level right now. And below the colleges, there's almost nothing. And that's
So, Rob, you mentioned about colleges. Are these scholarship players as well as club players? I mean, can you get a scholarship?
so that's kind of it's kind of a new thing with colleges right now. I guess the greatest example is Harrisburg right now. At least off the top of my head, Harrisburg like just started pouring money into esports. So they just started a brand new esports program. They partnered with us. They partnered with the Fusion, and they ran a esports tryout. It was actually an HBO Vice documentary about the Harrisburg esports tryout, and you'll see a little logo if you do watch it. But I mean, it really is just the beginning. One of the kind of bigger issues with college esports right now is the NCAA. As we know, the NCAA likes to take everyone's money, all the athletes' money. A great example is we ran a Madden tournament for EA. It was an EA sanctioned tournament, and we had a player show up who was a D1 basketball player. And he won, and I think it was a little over $5,000, and he had to quit D1 basketball to collect his money, and to pursue the career in esports, which he's doing right now. So the NCAA is kind of where they take this from here is going to be interesting, because you have all these 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids that are 100,000 heirs, and they would love to go to college, but are you going to join an NCAA program that's going to take all your money, or?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some really big legal and regulatory issues in and around esports. Now, I mean, Rob Orrit, when you were at Comcast Spectacor and doing the deal between Activision, the Philadelphia Fusion, what was that like? And then, I guess talk also about like the players that are involved. I mean, the actual players on the team, and how'd you find players?
Sure, but those are sort of related questions, Wayne, because from a deal perspective, I think like the most challenging thing about that deal wasn't necessarily the legal issues involved in the deal or the business terms of the deal. It was the fact that the Overwatch League was, the momentum was already happening with the Overwatch League. And I don't know if everybody even knows about the Overwatch League. I mean, you might have heard about it, but it's really the only league at this point in pro esports that's set up like traditional pro sports, where city teams have franchises as opposed to, sort of independent teams playing specific games, entering tournaments, kind of like golf or tennis or something like that in a traditional sports environment to win prize pots. But this is set up more like, the NHL or the NBA or whatever. So, a number of the teams were already established. The league was getting ready for its preseason, and then its real in the fall, and then its real launch in this winter. And once we got the deal done with Activision, which again wasn't a terrible struggle. The struggle was, holy crap, we've got to put a team together. And
so who was in charge of that? Who was in charge of putting the team together?
Yeah, so really Tucker Roberts, who's the president of the Fusion, was really spearheading that. He has a really, really deep knowledge. He's a gamer and a really, really deep knowledge of
And he happens
the space.
to be the son of Brian Roberts, the CEO of Comcast.
He is indeed.
So he was able to get enough money to make this happen.
Somehow.
Somehow. Yeah. $20 million to get into the league. Each of the 12 teams in the Overwatch League paid $20 million each. Other major sports team owners got into this thing. 12 teams at $20 million each, right?
And expanding next year.
And expanding. Now, I think they're going to charge between 30 and 50 million or something like that per team to get into this league.
Yeah.
You guys needed players. Most of the players in the league are not from the U.S.
We have no it's the Philadelphia Fusion. We have no players from the United States. I think that's true.
So
on
how
the
do you get
Philadelphia
them here?
Fusion. So you have esports, which are in places like South Korea. Esports are much more established already,
right?
And there's already professional players out there. So it's kind of a process of going out, knowing the kind of player. You needing to know. Like any kind of
But how do you find these guys? You just walk the streets of South Korea? Like, what do you do?
Well, you're someone that has to be involved in esports, that really knows esports, and there are, just like any other sport, there are literally scouts and experts who can tell you, oh, that guy is great at this position, we should get him for our team.
You identify the guys, and then you want to bring them here.
Yeah.
And then you guys are at Comcast Spectacor were pros at that because you brought in players from all over the world for hockey. Yeah. But then you started bringing guys in from all over the world for esports, and through the ways that you were doing it with hockey, and what happened?
We had a little bit of an issue because we brought the guys in through our normal entry point into the U.S., which on the East Coast, which was used to dealing with professional sports players, but wasn't necessarily didn't really know what to do with esports players. I think some of the teams that were playing on the West Coast or other teams brought their folks in through California, coming from Asia and so forth. And I guess in California there was a little bit more open-mindedness, as there is about so many things, to esports, and that these guys are actually, and girls are actually athletes. And we're able to get the kinds of visas that you need to bring them in. So we struggled with that, and I don't want to...
But you got it all done. But the crazy thing is all the players on the Fusion aren't from outside the U.S.
That's right.
Oh, gotcha. Rob H., I'm gonna hit you with this question. Now, the revenues from esports are expected to reach $905 million this year and approximately $1.6 billion by 2021. Now, is it safe to say, I guess, that it's accomplished a lot of similar things as a lot of today's traditional American sports, right? So in the leagues and the advertising media rights, have we now reached a point where we may see traditional sports incorporate developments emerging from the digital sport? And if so, how have you guys at Nerd Street positioned, or have you positioned Nerd Street for continued growth in these competitive spaces and areas?
So the developments, the behind-the-scene developments for applications in esports are actually really interesting. Something came across our plate not too long ago, and it's so. I guess let me paint a picture for you. When you watch a baseball replay, you're watching video footage of you hitting a ball or catching it.
Right.
But in a video game, the replays are math. You see all of the variables. This player moved from this thing. He went down here. He shot here. His crosshair was exactly at X and Y, so on and so forth. So something that recently crossed our plate was taking of these math-based recordings and chugging them, bringing them together, and throwing them at artificial intelligence. So when you, Ryan Howard, needs to play against the New York Yankees, you can actually, and it's the third inning, and you're the third at bat, you know that this pitcher is probably going to throw this exact pitch. And that's kind of what's happening in esports right now, is when a team is getting ready to play another team, you know all of the tendencies of the team that you're about to play with from the...
So you're getting the scouting reports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
What's your
it's
favorite word?
Right.
Analytics.
That's it.
Right?
analytics, yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you're a kid today, Rob H., right? If you're a kid today and you want to learn how to get into this esports world, how do you do it today? I mean, are there things that you're doing at Nerd Street specifically? Are there boot camps, leagues? How do you get into all this stuff?
So the real cool thing with esports right now is all the transparency that's happening. I think from a participant experience, it's not just you turn it on ESPN, you watch a game, you turn it off. On Monday to Friday, you're watching your favorite player play.
Where are you watching your favorite player?
Either on Twitch or Facebook or
Just
whoever's
like
streaming it,
Twitch.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Twitch. Does everyone know Twitch? See, a lot of people don't even know what Twitch is. I know you know what Twitch.
I know they know who Twitch is.
The kids know what Twitch.
I know who you guys know Twitch is. But so Twitch is essentially just live broadcasting, I guess YouTube, but live. And it's very accessible. I could bring my laptop up here, push a button, and I'm streaming on Twitch. So a lot of these guys, a lot of these professional esports athletes they'll stream from Twitch on their off hours, Monday to Friday, and then you can turn into the big tournament on Saturday and watch them play. And you're almost watching them play the tournament knowing what's going through their head because they've been talking about it all week. And it's almost as if you've been with them all week leading up to the tournament.
So when you're watching them on Twitch, right? Is it you're not only just watching them, these players can make money on Twitch? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of times the players have so many people watching them, and the chat room's moving really fast, so that they take donations, and for $2 you can make sure the player reads your message. I mean, that's one way of making money. Plus, there's standard sponsorships. Guy will hold up a bottle and make sure everyone sees the label. But just leading into how kids get involved, it's this transparency where me as a participant watching this stream, I can learn so much about the industry just watching the stream. I mean, I watch one player stream and he'll name people behind the scenes of an event, or he'll name people behind the scenes of his team. How many people know who the physical trainer is for the Phillies? You know what I mean? Right. Everyone knows who the cook is for the Fusion because that's the type of transparency that's happening in esports. It's all the players on the Fusion are talking about how great their meals are, and everyone knows who Chef Heidi is. So now
have you met Chef Heidi?
Oh yeah, I have. She's great.
And tell us about the Fusion House and how that all works.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting about the Overwatch League is you have these city teams, but for the first 2 years of the league, all of the games are taking place in Los Angeles, and all of the teams are living in Los Angeles. And so what the Fusion and a lot of the teams did is we got the guys a house. So basically we're talking about MTV's The Real World with 12, 18, 19, 20-year-old guys living in, Toluca Lake, California, in a mansion that's been
With Chef Heidi.
With Chef Heidi.
And she cooks good food.
She cooks good food, and you know, it's a nice house in a nice neighborhood, but every room basically on the first floor has been stripped
It's a
away.
mansion in sort of Beverly Hills.
And there's computer workstations everywhere, and you walk in the door, and everybody's playing video games, you know, practicing the whole time, which is pretty
I see
amazing.
pictures of them in the pool as well and all that kind of stuff.
I was there when they were
No alcohol though, right?
Red Bull.
Red Bull.
Red Bull.
Now, just to expand on this too, and being there's a lot of people in the audience who don't really know what esports is. Something that was left out of the Fusion House that these guys weren't talking about is a full gym. And
There is a gym in the Fusion House.
Yes.
It's in the
and this is
garage.
so this is kind of a different. If you start researching esports professional players now, you can see a lot of them are jacked, and a lot of them are really fit, and they're almost promoting it on their Twitters now. It's kind of a new. It's a new. What would you call it? It's a new aspect of esports.
It cuts against the stereotype.
Yeah,
right?
and I think it was Red Bull, but there's a team, Astralis and CS:GO, who was doing poorly, and they brought in a psychologist to help them perform, and the psychologist basically had them eating well, had them working out, healthy body, healthy mind, and then they won the major the next year.
And you're doing something like that this summer as well here at Nerd Street?
So we partnered with Julian Krinsky's camps, and we're doing an esports summer camp, and that's kind of a hurdle that we're dealing with right now is all of these parents think like their kids are just going to come, sit there for 12 hours on a computer, and then go home. But they don't realize that when the kids show up, they're going to be doing calisthenics. They're going to be eating healthy. And they're not just going to be sitting on a computer. They're going to learn how to produce these events from audio, video production level, all the way up to a tournament organizer level. So,
Because most people don't know that you and your co-founder, John Fazio, are real athletes. You're a hockey guy, he's a soccer guy, like real athletes and not just esports athletes. And that's sort of the trend is what's happening. So to sort of wrap up, we sort of have time for one more question. I'd love to hear from both of you about, certainly because where we are here today and the next panel that's coming up about sports betting, how does sports betting fit into the world of esports? And where do you see where that will go in the future? And I know it's not just the future you're going to tell me.
So yeah, people have been betting on esports for years now. And there's actually a little bit of a controversy specifically with Counter-Strike Go because they were using the in-game items. For anyone unfamiliar, there's items in the game that are worth money. A good example is the gloves that I own in Counter-Strike are $800. So now I'm taking those gloves, uploading them to a middleman. The middleman gives me credits, and I can use those credits to bet. This has been going on for quite a long time. And if you do a quick Google for Valve and CSGO items, you'll find that Valve just shut down one of these middleman sites. But because little kids, underage kids were betting. So as the publishers are starting to realize these loopholes that these other guys are doing and shut them down, now we turn into real regulated betting and 18 plus betting.
I mean, we're going to have Dan Shapiro come up here from William Hill in a few minutes talking about how, William Hill has set lines for esports games. How do you guys feel about that from your perspective?
From my perspective, I don't really see, I think that feels perfectly natural. And I don't really see a difference between, in many, many ways, whether they're legal issues or, as we were just talking about, conditioning issues or mental health issues. There's no real difference in my mind between traditional sports and esports. It's the same amount of time to become a elite athlete in both. And many of the issues are the same. So I don't really see, maybe there's even stronger opportunities in terms of betting because of the different kind of minutia that you can get into with esports. But it certainly feels like something that'll fit well and is already part of the scene anyway.
I don't even question it.
Right.
It's coming. It's been here. People are going to be betting on this, so.
Well, with that note, we're going to wrap up. And again, I just want to thank Rob Ortt from Bear Crossy, McDemus. Thank you so much for being here. Rob Hilsky from Nerd Street Gamers. These guys have done things together up until now from a legal perspective, from the deals you guys have done from a Comcast Spectacor, Philadelphia Fusion, and Nerd Street perspective, and more to come. And that's all I can say. All right, here we go. Next panel.
Thanks, guys. Good job, Rob.
Good stuff. Great stuff.